Do we have a form?
Need one more. We have Chris.
We have Chris.
You have 6 currently. You're good.
Let's give it just a couple more minutes,
Yeah.
if that's okay with everybody.
It's not right, Maria.
Does anybody know what has happened to Nick the can man, the honeybee guy?
He had a stroke, Nick,
Nick,
On
the
Old Main.
honeybee, the can.
is he in assisted living now? Do we
I
know?
don't know if he still is. He was for a while.
Yeah.
I know he's still.
You know who would know, Victoria? Who might know? I mean, I guess I could just knock on his door and see if his family's still there.
I was working with someone from the county on it, so I don't think they do.
Hello, Attorney Glunder.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
How are you?
Very good. And you all?
Great. It's a beautiful day in Lyons. Thumbs up.
Wonderful.
Hey, Commissioner Coe, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Plenty of room up here in the room if you ever want to come in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm headed to an Avalanche game, so gotta stick close to home.
Are you their lucky charm?
I hope not.
Well, we have a quorum. So why don't we get started? I will call the Thursday, October 19th, 2023 Town of Lyons Urban Renewal Authority meeting to order. Could we have the roll call, please?
Chair Rogan,
Present?
Commissioner Farrell,
Present.
Commissioner Daddy,
Present.
Commissioner Elson. Commissioner Eddy,
Present.
Commissioner Delman,
Present.
Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Seabrist. Commissioner Beam. Commissioner Coe,
Present.
Commissioner Drystad.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Delman. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. Would you read the consent agenda into the record, please?
Item June 29, 2023, Laura meeting minutes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay,
And passes unanimously.
thank you. Commissioner Cope, I'm looking, it looks like that was an affirmative. I just want to be sure. Yeah, okay, great. All right, so next we have public hearings. The first is resolution 2023-05, a resolution of the Town of Lyons Urban Renewal Authority adopting a budget for the calendar year beginning the first day of January 2024 and ending on the last day of December 2024. Is there a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Chair Rogan. The 2024 budget was sent out last Friday, I believe, and everybody received this document or should have received it. It's very small, as is all Laura budgets so far, but the impacts are presented in the budget document. And right now, projected revenues are about 36,600 with projected expenditures of about 26,000. The projected ending fund balance for 2024 is about 10,600. $600. So I would just caution that this amount should be considered before incurring any unbudgeted operating expenses until more revenue is collected, because after we made that contribution to the Broadway project, we did see a decline in our fund balance. The other thing that I just want to bring to the attention of the board is that we have incurred quite a bit of legal costs when we do these agreements. And unfortunately, the way that the agreements are written so far is that unless the agreements actually proceed and we start collecting TIF and the projects proceed, then we can collect and recoup those legal costs. But if those projects do not proceed, the Laura board and financial situation doesn't really improve and collect those or recoup those legal costs. So that's just something that I wanted to bring up, and we may see if some of these projects don't end up moving forward, because specifically, the Moss Rock project definitely had a lot of legal costs. So it's just something to keep in mind. We love Caitlin so much. She's so great, but she does come at a cost. So it's just something that, we want to be aware of as a board. And with that, I am happy to open it up for any questions.
Thank you. Will the clerk please record that Commissioner Drystad and Commissioner Williams have joined us? Thank you. All right, questions for Finance Director Isom.
I don't know if it's a question or a suggestion, but I would love to see like a high level graph of how much is going out for like bureaucracy and expenses as to how much has been actually awarded to something meaningful. Because I completely agree with what I think you're getting is if these projects don't happen, all we're really doing is just creating bureaucracy here that's not being used. Does that make sense?
It does. I would say if these projects don't move forward, really what's happening, aside from just our general meetings, we're just incurring legal costs and staff time costs. The contribution, I would say so far that Laura has been able to make is that $40,000 contribution to Broadway. But as many or some of you might remember, the general fund contributed for a couple of years to Laura in order to keep it whole. So I would say at this point, Laura has not broken even since the beginning of time. And as we continue to enter into these agreements for these great projects, we do incur those legal fees. And unless those projects move forward, we're not going to recoup that. And so I would say as far as meaningful costs, it's the Broadway contribution, which was $40,000. But again, the general fund did contribute for 2 to 3 years to keep Laura board whole.
Just to follow up, I mean, of course, the concern is the fact that interest rates are staying up. We've been educated by Moss Rock and everybody else that interest rates play a big role in how quickly they might move forward. Think Generator, I think, said the same thing. And now we read in the news that it could take a long time for interest rates to go back down. So there's kind of a squeeze play going on here. Anyway, I'll stop. I don't push this guys. Yeah.
Director Cope, did you have a comment, question?
So are we going to be solvent after we contribute to the St. Vrain Market project?
We will, because the St. Vrain Market project will not be contributed to until the TIF is started to generate. So what happens is that TIF will start to come in and then, it will go back out. So we don't ever put ourselves, unless we're to incur significant additional legal costs or other operational costs. If we were to start incurring those, we might get ourselves into the point where we would need general funds again, but it would not be because of St. Vrain Market necessarily.
Attorney Quandra?
Hi, Caitlin, Water Legal Counsel. Yeah, just to add on to what Cassie was just describing, I agree with what she said, and the way that we have drafted all of these agreements to date, St. Vrain Market, Moss Rock, and Miami, is that they only benefit if they generate increment, and there is no risk if they don't, beyond exactly what Cassie sort of described, right? The legal costs associated with the negotiating those agreements up front, or amending them, and then the administrative costs. But there is not a, dollars out related to the project. It only gets what it creates. And if it never happens, then it never gets anything.
Caitlin, is it possible that we could write future agreements in that if the project does not proceed, they still have to cover their legal costs or something like that, so that we can kind of cover ourselves in the event that something like this should, keep reoccurring?
You could. I would say it's not very common, and I think it's because that can be awfully hard to go get from an entity that doesn't have the money to proceed, right? I mean, at a certain point, you'd have to sue them over a $5,000 legal fee if they're not willing to just pay it. We can certainly write the agreements that way. Whether you're able to actually go recoup those dollars, that's a different story, because if they haven't proceeded with the project, they probably don't have the money to maybe pay that back otherwise. I will say in some circumstances for urban renewal authorities where we have a really, really purposeful developer that's coming in with, a clear ask, and often more where we're creating a new urban renewal area, and there's a lot of administrative and consultant costs, not just can you do this agreement, but the whole kit and caboodle. You can, in those circumstances for other authorities, we've done an agreement where they would sort of pay for those costs up front. But that's much more where you're hiring a consultant to do the blight study and prepare the plan and that sort of thing. And you have a really committed large developer. I don't think, at least the agreements we've seen to date and the asks we've seen to date, I don't think would necessarily be able to front those dollars, but it's always certainly something you could ask for.
Okay.
Attorney Quander, have you seen smaller authorities like ours address this issue in different ways that you might be able to recommend?
Let me do a little thinking on it. Nothing that comes to mind. I mean, the good news, and Moss Rock, I think, took quite a bit more negotiation, right? But Miami, and I'd have to look back, but the legal fees weren't too extensive. But it's really hoping that those projects come to fruition and the increment isn't generated if they don't. So I'll do some thinking on it, but not really. I think we've sort of done what I typically see, where you're accounting for your expenses and legal costs to be paid for as part of the increment that gets generated with the projects.
Thank you. Commissioner Farrell?
Yeah, I'm curious because we talked about let's talk about Spirit Hounds for a moment. They have demolished
St. Bree Market.
Thank you. The St. Bree Market, they have demolished their car wash. They're breaking up the entire driveway. So all of that was part, I believe, of their project. So we could potentially anticipate that already their property value will increase because of that work that they are doing. So while it might be small, that will be added to next year's budget, I imagine, that we're not accounting for right yet. So.
Yeah, Madam Chair, and I'll defer to Cassie on kind of the forecasting. You are right that hopefully the work they're undertaking will eventually improve the valuation that you see. But because of the time lag, right, the assessor has to come out and assess it and see the change, and then we pay property taxes in arrears. So by the time they pay it, it does lag by a couple of years before you actually see the increment dollars come in. But yes, it should, as long as things keep progressing and there isn't, a major recession or something, you should see property values continue to increase, and property values increase when they undertake work like that and improvements.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to ask a very simplified question for everybody's sake, especially mine. So with the remaining balance of $10,624, what exactly will the role of Laura look like next year? I mean, it doesn't sound like there's enough money in the bank that we could actually
sponsor any project or help finance, entertain any ideas. Is that right? I'm just wondering what Laura would look like in 2024 if we know that we have an extra $10,000.
Who wants to take that?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I can try and then maybe Cassie can add. So as a reminder, the agreements that you have made to date are not minus the $40,000 contribution that Cassie described. That was dollars in your bank that you contributed to a specific project. The other agreements that you've entered into have not been dollars in your bank. They have said, if you project go generate increment by making a project, increasing your property values over time, more increment will come in. And when that comes in, we'll give it to you. So you could entertain additional asks. I think Cassie is right to be prudent, around those asks. But as long as as long as you're not promising anything from your bank and budget, fiscally, you're not at risk in that way. It's really just your administrative costs. But you're right. I think it will probably be a quieter year, potentially, right?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think trustee Dottie asked a really good question, because my fear would be that Think Generator comes in on 4th and Main and has an ask that would exceed any reasonable amount of lawyer time, and we simply just couldn't say. We would just have to tell them we can't accept your ask right now because we can't pay the legal fees.
Or we could ask them to share in the legal fees.
Exactly.
Or I
Or
mean,
you ask the general fund to help.
Or we ask the general fund, or we ask them to share in the legal fees.
yeah, there's,
Which I think is probably
The way to go.
the way to go.
yeah.
We do have $20,000 in professional services fees budgeted for 2024. So we do have expenses budgeted.
And so far, the projection for 2023 is we will have used 15,000 in professional services.
That was for 2 contracts.
That was for 2 contracts, 3, really,
I think St. Brain
was St. Brain and
maybe.
the year before. And the Moss Rock contract was very complex, so I think we'll be okay there.
We're okay.
Yeah.
I have one last question. I was just curious why in the summation, the summary was Mayama not included in, towards that last paragraph. It just really talked about Moss Rock and St. Ray Market. And I just,
Mayama has told us they're not going to pursue.
oh, I had not heard that news. Okay,
That's what.
that's what tonight is gonna be about. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Drysdale, do you have any questions or comments? Oh, we can't hear you, Barney. It doesn't look like you're on mute, so maybe turn the sound up on your computer. No,
No, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. If there's something you'd like to communicate, maybe put it in the chat and we can have the clerk read it.
Or text it to me.
Or text it to Executive Director Simonson. Commissioner Williams, do you have anything to ask or add?
No, I don't at this point.
Okay. What about you, Commissioner Dillman?
No, I don't.
Okay. Barney, it looks like you're typing. Are you typing? Okay, we're gonna wait for you to type and see what happens.
To fill in the blank space. What happened with Mayama?
We're gonna hear about it shortly.
He's here.
We're here, but okay. All right.
Yeah. There it is. Oh, no, that's Kristen. Hasn't come in yet.
But he's still typing.
Hopefully it's not graffiti related.
Looks like it.
Quick poll. Is everybody going to the rave?
Volunteering.
Volunteering.
Yeah, I'll make an announcement that I'm gonna be Mayor McCheese again and I'm looking for a hamburglar.
I would love to be your hamburger. I just don't have the costume.
Out there. Okay, looks like we have something from Commissioner Drysdale.
Just to underscore the importance of the guard rallies. May that,
The guardrails, yes.
may that could be on the future agenda for the newer members.
That's a really great suggestion, Commissioner Drysdale, and we'll make sure that happens. I know you in particular spent a lot of time working on those guardrails. So we'll make sure that we have a refresh.
Well, and we may want to review those to look at these two situations to see if
Yeah.
there could have been a way to avoid that, but I don't think anyone anticipated the
Can you,
economy to do what it did.
would you please resend those to the authority, the guardrail document?
Sure.
That would be great, thank you. Okay, well, if there's no further questions, I will open the public hearing. We have a public hearing.
You want to speak on the budget?
No. I don't see anybody in the room to speak in the budget, and I don't see anyone online. So I'll open the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Sure. I motion to approve the 2024 budget for the Laura.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. If you're online, if you could raise your hand, that would be great to indicate a yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, Director Eystone. Okay, so on to general business. We have an update from Mayama. Come on up.
Okay, thank you. So first off, I just want to thank each of you for your time and apologize for your time. Both, because I mean, when we came here earlier, it was fully with full intention to move forward with our project. And the economy did what it did. And we had to fire our general contractor. And there's some personal things that have happened within the ownership of Mayama, but these things stacked to where it felt like if we moved forward, it wasn't in our best interest overall. However, we very much want to move forward. It still is pretty essential for our business in order for us to grow and be the studio that we really want to be. That second space, that expansion is super vital for us. So I'm just asking that we we just wait, but our intention is to move forward. We're going to watch numbers. We're looking at creative financing. We're looking at different ways to build that might be less expensive. We're looking at bringing in other people to help. I mean, we're looking at a lot of different things, but essentially we don't want to expand ourselves out of business. And that is our number one priority. And just hearing about the budget and that it was costly to this awesome, like Laura is great. And I don't want to be a burden. And so my apologies.
So I should give them a little background, maybe. As you guys know, we entered an agreement with Mayama. They had as part of that agreement, there was a clause that they would commence their construction by September 1st of 2023. And when that didn't happen, we met and talked, looked at some other options, and then we consulted with Caitlin on what the strategy is. And you can either let it just terminate, because it does terminate if they hadn't commenced, or got an extension before that date. So basically we can hold on to it. This agreement has terminated, but if the time comes up again in the future, that's right, we have it ready to go with some minor adjustments. And we would need a new resolution at that point.
Thank you, and I apologize for not asking for a staff report first.
Yeah.
And well, thank you. I really don't feel like you need to apologize, because this is what the Laura is for. This is what we're for. We're here to support our businesses in our town. So it's a pleasure to do. And who knows what you're gonna come up with for the next go round, right? So do you, so the agreement has expired,
It has,
right? So we keep it on file,
yes.
and if and when you come back to us with your expanded great ideas, we can use that as a basis. So it's not work that's gone to waste at all, not at all.
Yes, it's called a reinstatement and amendment that could follow based on if it's, similar, but the numbers have changed or whatever, so.
Yeah, and the numbers will change, I'm sure, because they always do.
They're gonna go up because construction.
It's going up, it's going up. And
What goes up must come down.
Yes, eventually.
thank you so much. I really appreciate your understanding and your time and all of it. And hopefully I'm standing here in not too long saying, hey, here's
We're ready
a
to go.
solution and we're moving forward. So thank you.
You're welcome. I want to see if any of the commissioners have any questions or comments before we release you from the podium over there. Commissioner Williams, any questions or comments? No? Commissioner Drysdale, is there something you'd like to type in the chat? I think he's typing. Commissioner Coe?
No questions.
All right. Anybody in the room, questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to hope that our legal fees, if this were to come back as a reinstatement, is that right? I'd like to think that they would be less than the initial some time round, right?
I would imagine.
Because if it's just a resolution, I don't know if we can just take the contract where it's at, change a few things. It sounds like more like amendments, maybe.
Well, I think it depends on what Mayama is wanting to do and ask for, and I mean,
The bulk of it has been done.
but the foundational work, I would
The
say. has been
legalese is
done.
done.
Right.
It
Yeah.
wouldn't be, but you'll want to review it at the end, yes.
Okay.
Do we have anything from Commissioner Tristad?
He said, I hope Mayama does come back with a revised proposal.
I do have a question. Yeah. Is there a legal process that we need to just do to
Caitlin can, if there's more.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Farrell, no, by its terms, the agreement automatically terminated when this date was missed. Certainly, if you'd like to have Executive Director Simonson maybe send just a confirming letter or something to paper it, we can, but legally on its own, it terminated. And it will remain that way and unless you take up a future action.
I'll leave that to staff's decision if you want to do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Okay, next, an update from Moss Rock Development. Executive Director Simonson sent an email earlier, but maybe you'd like to give us a recap.
Sure. I did make a request to both of the parties to provide an update since we haven't seen movement from either Mayama or Moss Rock. Unfortunately, the Moss Rock developers were not available. They don't even have computers with them apparently wherever they are. So we've been communicating by email. I sent to you, she said, Edna and Anya said both indicated that there's really not much of an update from what they gave to the Board of Trustees back in July of this year. And so I did include both the video from that update they presented to the Board of Trustees and the minutes from that meeting, basically indicating that they too are committed to making this happen and that they will do whatever it takes to make this happen. However, they are continuing to also work on their financing. So I did get an update, an email that was included as well. Their current contract or agreement with the authority expires on December 15th of 2023. So 2 months. So we would have next month to take action if you or the Moss Rock Development would want to pursue that. We did get this email from Edna saying that they would like to extend the date of the work starting by 1 year to December of 2024. They said they are in active discussions with the investors, but they don't think they will be able to start construction in the next 2 months. But if they secure funding in between now and then, they are glad to do so. So, this is presented to you as just an update. There's no resolution at this point. I thought you might want to talk with them directly,
Yeah.
but wanted to get kind of some discussion and direction from you on how you would like to move forward with this, but at least give you the information that they would like to request an extension of 1 year.
Thank you. What I would be curious to see, and maybe this is a question for Attorney Ponder, who I see you have your hand up, is I'd love to know a list of pros and cons of offering an extension or not. And how that could affect the authority. And did you have a comment, Attorney Ponder?
Sure. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So there is not a motion or resolution before you tonight, but I think you really have kind of two choices that would one is if you do nothing and they miss the December 15th, 2023 date, again, just like Miami, the agreement automatically terminates. And just like Miami, they certainly would have the ability to come back in the future and ask to reinstate it with new dates once and if their financing is ready. Or the alternative is that you could choose to entertain a resolution and an amendment at a future meeting. It doesn't have to be before 12/15, but ideally it is, because then the agreement's still in place, to extend out that date based on their request or a different date. I think it's certainly up to this board. I think the negatives of that is it's kind of, preparing an amendment, preparing a resolution when we don't really know if that's a viable date. So it may very well be back. So you can also just let it sit and let it automatically expire and terminate, and then see when and if they do come back as an alternative. So we just wanted to give you those two options, and one takes basically no action, and the other is to direct us maybe at a future meeting to bring forward probably a maybe more formal request from Mossrock to articulate the reasoning behind that date, and a request for an amendment, and then to consider that amendment. Thanks.
Thank you. Questions from the authority?
Yes, I do have a kind of more of immediate concern though, and that's the Broadway project. And what was it that we had agreed upon in terms of burying the electric lines? And will this impact that financially for us?
If you might recall that at the very end, we separated the two when that happened in this agreement.
Okay.
So everything we're doing will happen in our town right of way. And when they come in and do their work, they may have to move or replace a curb in front of them, but the technical infrastructure will be underground and it will be in our right of way.
But would that require not just a curb, but also digging up a portion of that street?
No.
Okay.
Their infrastructure for the hotel will be above ground, back in their trash enclosures.
So on that level of immediacy, is there a con that we need to think about that we're not thinking about? I mean, it takes some
From
time
my
to.
perspective, the con, of course, is we have an empty site for another year.
Yeah.
That looks quite blighted. I think you should ask them to come in and talk with the authority next month. And I think we should ask them what they are going to do to that site for the next year to make it look better, make it look like it is an active planned project instead of what I think is almost more blighted than it was previously.
Yeah.
So that, the other con would be on their side, they're gonna lose another year of TIF. You know, we're at the end of the life of this TIF district. And so they will lose one more year of reimbursement.
Commissioner Williams?
The question I've got, and yes, I do believe we should have them come in, and I do think that they would need to do something with that space because it is worse than it was before it was cleared. They're in France at the moment and in rural France. So, you know, it's not that they would not have liked to have been here in a timely manner. The question I have is, if we allow it to expire, does that make it more difficult for them to get their financing, their funding? Is that, you know, which to me would be a reason for us to in fact go ahead and incur the cost of stretching it out through next year, 2024, because I know they're very, very committed to this project.
That's a great point. Thank you very much.
That's good.
And so on the following of that, if I might, I have another thought. And if we let this terminate and there's a new board in place next year, they technically could end up having to completely renegotiate
And may not get.
it at all.
Yeah.
So there's that element. Also, if we don't, I mean, either way, the property could potentially be up for sale, sitting exactly like it is.
That's right. And we have no idea what could go there.
Right. So I just want to put that out there as things to think about. We could have maybe those discussions with them when they come in.
Absolutely.
Commissioner
And
Dreista has a comment too.
would you read it, please?
I suggest we consider requiring a thorough update from Mossrock at least every 3 months if we grant an extension.
I think that's a great idea, and I think that we can have after we've all given it some thought, we can have a pretty fulsome discussion about any conditions that we might consider putting on an extension. Commissioner Williams?
I think we should also note that obviously they can't do a thing until all the Broadway construction is over. And that may have degraded the property more in ways that they would not be completely responsible for unless that is in fact built into the agreement they have with the contractor.
Executive Director Simonson, do you have anything to add to that?
I just know that in the agreement with them, we were very, we've made some last minute changes to that section about Broadway. And they're allowing us to use it right now for staging, so that's great. The one thing they had planned to do by December of this year was to remove the Moxie building.
Yeah.
So, when you meet with them in November, maybe we set that as one of these timelines that they do, don't wait for a whole year to start that or something.
Well, and one of my questions was, have we defined what we mean by work commencing?
Yes, it's in the agreement. I think I have to have a building permit or a demolition permit.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if you do, Caitlin. But
I
we did
could
define
go
it.
look at it.
We
Okay,
did.
just want to make sure it was defined. Commissioner Cope, do you have anything to add or ask?
I do not. I'm good.
Maybe in the packet, when they come in, we could have a copy of that, at least just to review.
Yeah. Have we confirmed that they'll be available for the next Laura meeting?
No, I was waiting for direction.
Okay.
But we will make sure, I will send that right away tomorrow to see if they'll be available. And if not, are we willing to adjust our time of the meeting?
Let's cross that bridge.
Okay.
I believe they are back in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Okay, are we done with this conversation? Do you have what you need? Okay. Anybody have anything else? I want to make sure. Okay. Any future agenda items from anybody? Nada. Okay. In that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
There we go. Discussion? No, all in favor? Aye, great. Chris, we are adjourned. Chris, enjoy the game. If we lose, I'm gonna blame you in public. So just be aware. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.